This is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. I lend my voice to those who can't. It's time we try, it's time we care, it's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
Welcome to the Special Chronicles podcast. My name is Daniel Smrokowski. I'm the founder of Special Chronicles and a Southern Striver Global Messenger alum with Special Olympics and a service ambassador at United Airlines and a combat EnergyForce ambassador. Our website, specialchronicles.com, where you can stream our archives of over 750 episodes absolutely for free. And to follow Special Chronicles on social media, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, specialchronicles.com. This week on the Special Chronicles podcast, we're celebrating Earth Day, talking all about trees and tree efficiency is the topic on this latest episode of our ComEd EnergyForce series, Season 7, Part 3. Kelvin Limbrick, Senior Vegetation Management Program Manager at ComEd, is our guest. So please put your virtual hands together as we welcome Kelvin on the Special Chronicles podcast and our ComEd EnergyForce series. Welcome, Kelvin. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you on. We are almost in the same studio, same virtual studio.
Well, we're right next to each other.
Yeah, we're right next to you. You're in the same studio. Yeah, we just have two different camera angles. That's how high tech we are. With that, it's so excited. I'm excited to have you on. I know we were connected with the marketing team at ComEd, and I'm glad that you had dropped me a note this morning and had time on my calendar amid both of our really busy schedules on this Monday. But I'm excited to have you on the program.
Yeah.
So why don't we?
I'm happy to be here. So check it out.
Awesome. So why don't we go ahead and get it kickstarted with having you first before we get into the main topic, and share how we got connected. Well, thanks to the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program, but in particular, if you have a connection to our disability community, and then tell us about your role at ComEd.
Yeah, so my role at ComEd is I'm on the transmission team with vegetation management, but I do have some roles in distribution as well. Predominantly, I do a little bit of everything. My favorite stuff is the restoration work, so I get to go out. I help put prairie underneath the rights of way as we remove the incompatible trees that might grow up underneath it, and I make room for the birds, the bees, the butterflies. But I also maintain the right of way after it's trimmed. On the transmission or on the distribution side, rather. Sorry, I make sure that our 34 kilovolt lines don't have any interruptions halfway through the cycle, and I keep the lights on.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know our listeners, at least the past 7 years, have known that ComEd is all about keeping the lights on and powering lives. And so with that, as this episode, people could listen to this podcast on demand anytime. But this episode is, as the kids say, is dropping on Earth Day, which is April 22nd. I believe April 22nd. So with that, if listeners, how can trees help keep your homes more energy efficient in the summer and the winter due to shade placement? If our listeners, I think one of the episodes that you listened to was our Energy Savings 101 episode. So if our listeners go back, just go on specialchronicles.com and click listen, and then you can search for our Energy Savings 101 episode. And we'll put a link to a news release that ComEd recently put out. That honestly, I will throw down that fourth wall and be transparent and say, I have not clicked through and read that news release. So,
Well,
as a I know it's if the marketing team if they know.
we don't have to tell them. They don't have to know any of this.
No. Maybe I might actually edit this out. Let's make a note of that. 6 minutes into the episode, let's make a note of editing it out. Okay, you know what? Yeah, we'll make a note. We'll edit it out. With that, yeah. It's realistic. That's what this podcast is. It's all about. It's a reality show on as a podcast, kind of. Yeah. How can share with us? How can trees help keep your? Because our listeners will recall that energy savings quiz. That I know that as EnergyForce ambassadors, we educate the public about that. We've if you listen back to that Energy Savings 101 episode that I did in January, I think it came out January 1st, whatever that book is. One of the questions has to do with energy efficient being in the summer and in the winter, and so I think this question kind of will hopefully will go more in depth to answer that question. And so, how can trees help keep your homes more energy efficient in the summer and the winter due to shade placement?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So one thing I'll say is that outside shade placement, trees do an amazing amount of things for us. The list is almost endless, and each one could probably be its own episode. But so planting a tree, if you can, is probably one of the best things you can on account of the shade. That tends to be more for the summer. So if you're looking to plant a tree in your yard, you want to look at where the sun hits your house the most, or your apartment, or whatever you're living in. There are different sized trees for all different kinds of situations, and maybe you need to convince your neighbor to plant the tree to get the benefit. But ideally, if you look at sort of the south side of wherever you're living, that's where the sun is going to be the most intense midday. In the east, you've got the sunrise, so you want maybe a little bit of light to help reduce your electrical usage. You're switching on the lights on a day-to-day basis, so having that morning light is nice, but having that midday sun can be really intense, and it makes your air conditioner work a little bit too hard. So look to the south side of wherever you're living, find a nice space that's a good distance away from your structure. You don't want to place anything too close to your house. You don't want it too close to the power lines. So trying to find that happy medium of where you can put a tree, and then making sure that you're picking the right tree for the right place. A good example is the bur oak is an absolutely massive, gorgeous tree. It's pretty close to the white oak, which is our state tree here in Illinois, and it supports about 500 different pollinators. Or insects, sorry, not all of them are pollinators, 500 different insects, and indirectly and directly a lot of birds and mammals too. So you might want that tree, but it also gets really tall and really wide. So you would have to place it a ways away from your house. It's a great shade tree to reduce the impact of what your air conditioner is going to have to do to work. But you want to make sure you're picking the right spot.
Awesome. And can you, as we continue to talk about, because this episode is all about trees for you and me, feel like it could Sesame Street could could use this with it. I love the title that you came up with. It's family kid friendly, and comment on the benefits that trees can provide to customers who week out in energy efficiency, using the example. Full-grown trees can shade and cool houses in the summer and block strong winds and people, with the potential to reduce energy bills by 20%. Can you comment on the benefits that trees can provide to customers regarding energy efficiency?
Yeah, so I think the big one is that trees, when they cast shade, obviously shade's a little bit cooler than the direct sunlight, but also through transpiration. So the trees take in water through their roots and they send it up their leaves, and on a hot day, they release all that water as a means of cooling themselves. And so you actually get a cooling air effect on the house. So your tree is almost like its own kind of an air conditioner on that south side of the house, blocking the sun. In the winter, you have a couple more options, really planting anything. So you could do a deciduous tree that leaves out, because in the winter, really, one of the reasons I say do a deciduous tree on the south side of the house is when those leaves drop, we want that warmth from the winter to come in on the south side to actually heat our house a little bit and relieve bills that way. But on the north side, or even on the west side, here in Illinois, we get a lot of winds out of the west, the westerlies. That's where a lot of our storms come from, is the northwest. So by putting either some of the evergreen trees, white pines are an absolutely gorgeous state tree that we have, or tree that's native to the state is what I meant to say. I apologize. Or yews are very popular. Junipers are very popular. Planting those, or just really any tree to sort of break that wind. But the more dense you get, again, you want to make sure you're picking the right tree and putting it in the right spot. But having that wind barrier will reduce the amount of heat that your house will have to be producing constantly. Or if you live in an older house, sometimes there are a lot more gaps that need to be sealed. If you haven't taken the time to seal that windbreak will also help the air moving through and taking the heat.
Awesome. That was really beneficial for listeners. And with that, you and listeners probably hear some background music that's coming up. We're going to take a quick, brief sponsor ad break, and we'll come back to talk all about ComEd year-round tree trimming. Talk all about trimming those trees as we take a water break. And I have to do a live ad read. So I don't know if I can take a total water break. I'll take a water break when you talk in the next segment. And so with that, support for Special Chronicles comes from listeners like you. Please support this podcast to operate our studio and pay our monthly website, podcast and video recording studio hosting. Will you please visit specialchronicles.com/give. That's specialchronicles.com/give with a monthly or one-time donation today to support this podcast. And we thank you for your generous support of Special Chronicles. And with that, I try to fade that off all as efficient. And as I now finally take my water break, as we now move into ComEd year-round tree trimming. This is actually this is a topic that is actually news to me, news and new to me, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners, they might be new to them as well, or maybe they've heard about it before, but. So that's why I'm really looking forward to learning more about this topic, and I'm sure our listeners are as well. How does ComEd tree trimming support our reliable grid?
Yeah, so ComEd has tree trimming because one of the things that we sort of have to deal with is everybody likes trees in their yard. And even if it's not in a nice manicured yard with trees that are loved and well cared for, if you let anywhere go long enough, the tree pops up. They're pretty good about finding space and coming in wherever they can. So we have a couple different programs that we manage throughout the ComEd system. The big one is that our transmission and our distribution circuits are all in cycles. So transmission is a 5-year cycle, distribution is a 4-year cycle, and the idea is that 1 year out of that cycle we'll go through and remove or trim or make any changes that we need to in order to maintain a proper clearance. Different voltages have different clearances because we don't want something to grow in and cause a problem during the rest of that cycle. So the idea is we should be able to touch it during that for 5 years and then just move on. Some of our other programs have or some of our other circuits, or we have other programs that are designed to enhance that cycle. So one of the ones that I run, the mid-cycle program for our 34 kVs, we go through in year 2 and we take a quick look to make sure that those higher voltage lines don't have anything that might cause an issue in the next 2 years. So we just give them a quick double check. A lot of times we're looking for trees that might have limbs that aren't well attached, or maybe have developed some sort of an issue over the last 2 years, or I guess it's 4 years on the mid-cycle cycle. But I don't want to get too complicated with dates and timing. But we just take a little bit of a closer look, having our contractors plan them out and make sure that the health of the tree along those lines is in good standing, and we're not worried about anything hitting in the next 2 years. And then from there, we also look at lines that are maybe a little bit more vulnerable or serve different venues, serve airports. Those are all different programs that we want to enhance and make sure that if there is something that could go wrong, we're preventing outages on either lines that we're concerned about or in areas that require a bit more attention to run. We wouldn't want anything happening to O'Hare on account of vegetation and the ComEd power line. So that is an annual sort of a thing. Hospitals are another really big one that we consider. And then different neighborhoods that may see more outages than others get a lot of attention because we want to reduce those amount and increase that safety and reliability.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned, especially at O'Hare. As a long-time listeners will know, I also work at United Airlines based at O'Hare Airport. So yeah, I definitely know that's definitely important. Quick follow-up question that I have for you related to what you talked about, related to tree trimming with all reliable grid. And this may or hopefully is related, but I know a lot of maybe not necessarily residential but I know a lot in the cities this is happening, where we've got green roofs on roofs, and I'm assuming like those maybe not big oak trees on our green roofs, but might be small trees. Can you kind of comment on how this tree trimming is related to green roofs?
I'm not sure that they tie too much together. So you have a good point. The green roofs definitely are not going to have any trees in them. A lot of times green roofs, they have the shorter growing vegetation, and the soil isn't as deep. So I don't know that you'd get anything all that tall on them. Okay. If I think if they did, it might fall out. So it's usually the shorter growing grasses and plants and things like that. So it's not something that's come across my plate. Trimming in green roofs. I haven't had the question pop up. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. I think it's a really good question. But as of right now, no, there's no correlation between the two for us, which is probably for the best.
Okay. Yeah, good. Good point. And if for those of you listening in, if you are watching the live stream on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, or you're listening to the podcast on Spotify or Apple, feel free to leave your if you guys have any questions related about trees, leave it in the comment. I think on Spotify you can comment, or just on our YouTube or Facebook link or LinkedIn, you can leave your any questions in the comments. And as I or someone else from my team sees any of those comments, I can make sure to forward any of those questions on to you, Kelvin, as well, that we can answer in the comments of the podcast. And so with that, to kind of tie a nice little bow on this tree trimming, as I guess people in your neighborhood, people tie bows around trees, so I can kind of make that connection. Did I tie a nice little bow around this segment? All these kind of puns. But can you, for listeners, comment on ComEd's year-round tree trimming efforts and why that's important for customers and the grid? Because I'm sure most people will probably kind of think, oh, tree trimming is done in the spring or summer or fall, but this is a talking point that we have from the marketing team that wanted us to highlight year-round tree trimming. And so can you also kind of speak to the need also in the winter months of this important, and kind of comment on year-round tree trimming efforts and why that's important for customers and the grid?
Absolutely, Daniel. So one of the big things that I guess I want to announce is that we have to trim year round because we have so many trees that we don't really get to limit it to one time of the year or another. So we go until there's nothing left to do as far as our yearly cycle, and typically I think we end up trimming right up until the new year. But there are a lot of reasons why you'd want to trim seasonally or specifically in the winter. But for the most part, we just have a lot of work to do, and we want to make sure that we're getting it done. Benefits to doing it in the winter is some species you want to be cognizant of exposing them to disease, or if you trim it while they're dormant, then you don't have to worry about any kinds of issues with knocking the tree during the growing season. So it gets a chance to heal up right away when it comes back in the spring. Another thing we run into tree related is different animals that you might have out in the right of way. A big one being bats that might be roosting and reproducing during the year. So typically April through the end of October, November is when the bats they've got their pups. They haven't yet gone into their caves to hibernate for the winter, or wherever their hibernacula may be. And so there are certain areas where we have to be very cognizant of what animals are using it, whether it's bats, whether it's birds. And we do take steps to go through and work with Fish and Wildlife or Illinois Department of Natural Resources on where endangered and threatened species are, and make sure that we're not causing any troubles there. Our environmental team does a great job of helping us out with making sure things progress. But there are a lot of reasons why we want to trim year round. The big one is just that there's so much work to do.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned working with the Illinois wildlife and making sure that the environmental work that ComEd does, especially when it comes to the tree trimming, it's all like it's humane and safe for bats and other wildlife animals, because even though I'm sure a lot of our listeners, I'm sure there's probably some listener out there that's either shouting at the headphones or might even put in the comments that might not like bats and some of the wildlife, but I'm sure we also have a lot of other listeners that might like bats or might like these wildlife, and so I'm glad that you had highlighted the importance of working with the Illinois. I'm blanking on the name of the, but
Natural resources,
yeah. So that's really powerful. We're going to take another, as listeners probably hear, some background music that is coming up in the background, and we'll take another just quick ad break. And this next ad break will be familiar to you, Kelvin, along with our main culprit, partner here at Special Chronicles. And when we come back, we will talk all about the zoo bras, the zoo program with zoo bras. Yep, Sorry, can't talk today. And we'll be right back on SpecialChronicles.com. Support for Special Chronicles comes from ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program, the country's first energy and solar efficiency education program designed and taught by people with disabilities. Learn more at specialchronicles.com/ComEd. That's specialchronicles.com/ComEd, where I've also included this podcast series is linked in ComEd social media and other ComEd resources. We'll include links to some tree resources on there as well. We're so grateful for ComEd to keep the lights on and keep all ComEd Radio is powering this podcast to stay powered on. Yeah. All right. Hopefully the marketing team likes that ad break, that little ad read.
What's funny, you said to keep the lights on, and then you almost like your second intuition for the next bit is to say to keep the lights on again, because that's sort of the phrase, right? But it's been 7 years that ComEd has been a corporate partner of Special Chronicles and this platform. So we're really thankful and grateful, because if it wasn't for our supporters and sponsors, then I honestly wouldn't be able to keep podcasting out of my own pocket. So it's really grateful. With that, the zoo brought sorry, can't say that next one. That zoo program is this is another, just like the last segment, this is another new topic that and if I'm as the podcast host am learning on this series, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going to learn some energy different tips and learn new topics. And so this is another exciting topic that I know I live in like the town that's next door to the Brookfield Zoo, or I think that they just renamed it's the Chicago Brookfield Zoo. I think I was coming Zoological Society,
yeah. I was coming back from my girlfriend's condo a couple weeks ago, and I saw that they changed the name on the sign. But with that, how cutoffs from a local foliage go to a local zoo? Can you comment on that, on how cutoffs and maybe kind of briefly for listeners define what cutoffs are, and then go into how cutoffs from our local foliage go to our local zoos?
Yeah. So the cutoffs are basically any of the trimmings on the tree. We use specific species. So the animals love maple, they love mulberry, willow, they go absolutely crazy for, which we don't find a ton of, but when we can, they love that. And then there's just a handful of other species that the animals can eat. Those are their top three. But basically, when the guys are out pruning along the power lines every year, anything that's about the size of a $50 or so, not really too much bigger or smaller. Anything that's got leaves on it, or actually even during the winter, we'll give them stuff that doesn't have leaves on it, just every other week during the winter instead of every week during the growing season. But we give them these limbs of the cuttings or the trimmings or the browse if you want. It gets very confusing. I have a lot of people like my tree contractors. They're like, "What is browse? Like you call it browse?" And I was like, "Well, that's what the zoo calls what it is when they give to the animals. That's the end product. But you call it trimmings or it gets interesting. But yeah, so it's just the leafy cuttings of those particular species or the ones that the animals are able to eat. We send them to both Lincoln Park and Chicago Zoological Society or Brookfield. And actually just last year in October, we added on Phillips Park Zoo in Aurora. So now we deliver to them, but we only deliver to them during the growing season because they're a much smaller zoo. They don't get a whole heck of a lot of it. It's just a little like grapple full.
Awesome. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be excited to learn about that. And as we now talk a little bit more about can you talk a little bit more about the Zoo Bras program, what it is, and where the select foliage trimmings are sent to our animal friends at the local zoo? I'm sure a lot of our listeners I'm sure a lot of people have gone to zoos. I know my mom actually got a zoo pass so she could take my young niece and nephew, or two grandkids, to the zoo. So I'm sure there's a lot of families out there that are heading out now that spring is here. Is going to be heading out to the zoos in the spring, summer, fall months. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the Zoo Bras program and where the select foliage trimmings are sent to our animal friends at the local zoos?
Yeah, so you'd be surprised which animals actually get browse. You'd think that it'd probably be the herbivores, right? But we actually I've seen, I think at Lincoln Park. I'm not sure which zoo it was before I go speaking because they both have African wild dogs. But I have a picture of the African wild dogs just going at this branch and pulling it apart. Bears will play with it. Of course, the beavers love it. Which actually, Daniel, can I take a quick pause? I've got a question for you, a little bit of a joke. What did the beavers say? What did the beavers say to the tree as they were parting?
It's news to me. I don't know.
It was nice gnawing you.
Nice. Oh, nice. Oh.
Nice gnawing. But yeah, so we try to locally source everything. So we don't want to send trucks everywhere to grab. But Brookfield's sort of more a little further south, and so any trucks as they're trimming along the lines that they have some browse. Typically, we chip it and turn it into mulch using a wood chipper. It just goes in the back of a truck, and then we send it off. But if they have those particular species, the maple, the willow, or the mulberry, we have a special truck that comes along. It's got a really big grapple on it. It reaches down, it grabs that browse, puts it in the back of the truck into the bed, and then the next morning, real bright and early before the crowd starts showing up at the zoo, they go to the back entrance where the commissary is for the animals. They'll drop off the browse. And then actually even at Lincoln Park, we drive through the zoo, and at each little station, they'll take the browse and they drop it off at the front door, and the keepers pull it in. And then if you're at the zoo and you're looking at the animals, you may see them. They've got some branches from trees tied up. Those are either something that the zoo cut or they're provided by us. And we work very hard to make sure that they have as much as they possibly could. But it's just a nice way to recycle the vegetation clippings instead of having to chip them up and let them break down or go into somebody's yard. Just a nice little way. It gives the animals something to chew on. It gives them a little added nutrition. And all in all, I think it gives them a little bit more of an interactive experience with their environment.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, it's yeah. Awesome. It's really empowering, I think, for our listeners to hear about how Comrade is working with our local zoos and really helping our animal friends to have something to chew on, to that our trees, like kind of going back to what we talked about at what we talked about at the beginning of the episode about planting wanted to plant in trees in your at your home, taking those trees, which then taking the trimmings that we talked about it in the last segment to now bringing it to our zoo. It's like a circle of life type of moment. Well, I don't want, since this podcast is also available on YouTube. I don't want to play Disney's Circle of Life on the Lion King, but
Yeah, don't do that.
Listeners, you guys can all pause this podcast, go pull it up on Spotify, and just heal and just listen to Circle of Life. Anyway, yeah. So. I hear some listener out there is going to go and pause this, go listen, and come back. With that,
when I listen to it back, I'm going to cue it up so that I can do that.
Wait, you're going to keep up the this podcast? Yeah. And that's that's what we should tell listeners. I'm making notes of the chapter markers. So when you get to like 30 minutes into the episode, just would you put a little disclaimer? Get ready to queue up Circle of Life.
Play the song Circle of Life.
Yeah. Pause, play. Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to get any copyright issues. So I know in the past we have not necessarily for music, but we have had other related to the AP, other I'm not going to go into the details, but other copyright related issues that we don't want to get into. Legal stuff is not fun. So with that, I'm going to go and take one final break as you hear the background music playing, hopefully in the background, and we'll take one final break, one final ad break mention. Support for Special Chronicles comes from United Airlines Bridge Disability Business Resource Group, connecting people of all abilities. Learn more on United's commitment to disability inclusion for employment and travel at specialchronicles.com/United. That's specialchronicles.com/United. And I should have faded that off more better, but just if our listeners are wondering, if you do go to specialchronicles.com/United, we cannot. I have to put a disclaimer that if you do go to specialchronicles.com/United, we do not offer you any discounts on airline travel. So I have to say that. I know. That's not something that we were able to work out. I mean, I'm also employed by them, but that's not something that we were able to work out with this. So just have to. I know. Maybe in the future. Maybe if I don't know. Can they do that for podcasts? Can they offer?
I think anything's up for negotiation, right?
Yeah, I know. Who knows? Maybe, who knows? Maybe in the future, maybe we might be the first podcast to offer our listeners a discount. I don't know. Who knows? I'm just putting it out there, and I put stuff like, for example, these headphones I'm wearing and this microphone. I mentioned my equipment falling apart, And then I
Right.
had a listener that donated to get new equipment. So stuff can happen. With that, in this final segment, because I know we're coming at about 39, well, about 40 minutes of actual air time, not the pre-show, but 40 minutes. I know, but hey, you did tell me that you like to talk about trees, and anybody that's passionate about whatever topic that you're into is it's totally fair game. I don't know. Don't know what tree kind of pun to make there, but fair. Yeah.
Let's just leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Yeah. Okay. I like that. We're just gonna.
What'd you do? Are you gonna edit in groans every time I tell a joke?
I'm just gonna play this.
Oh, I hear it. I heard it. It took a little bit.
Oh, it took a little. Yeah. That and our audience laughter.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Gotta love sound effects.
Yeah. Right.
Anyways, as we leaf along into the final segment, this is the point of the episode where we share social media plugs. Can you share with us where our listeners can follow ComEd on socials, as well as the ComEd news release and any other tree-related resources for all listeners?
Yeah, so I think pretty reliable. We're available at ComEd on any social. But also, I recommend that if you're interested in trees and knowing more about vegetation management, ComEd.com/trees is a great way to get information on planting the right tree in the right place, learning more about everything that vegetation management does, reporting any questions or issues that you may have. And of course, you can always call 1-800-Edison-1 in order to get a hold of somebody from our service team and sort of talk through any issues you may have or questions of that.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to put those links in the show notes. And I just want to clarify the website and phone number for our listeners. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. So wherever you are listening, you can look down in the description for this episode, and I'll put those links in there. But it's comment if our listeners want to learn more about trees. Should be easy enough. ComEd.com/trees.
Correct.
And the phone number is 1-800 Edison. That's EDISON 1.
Correct.
That's awesome. And so I will, for those of you watching the live stream, I just put that up on the screen for you. In fact, I am going to make it even better for our listeners to you see it as any professional show. You see it going across that little ticker there. As Kelvin, you just said ComEd.com/trees, or you can call 1-800-Edison-1. And so if our listeners want to learn more, that's both of those can be helpful.
Yep, they should be helpful. And then at ComEd on any of our socials gets you to our social media page.
Awesome. So I'll make sure to put those links in the show notes. And I hear some music going on in the other room outside of the studio. I know. I don't know what's going on. I think the TV is on. That's probably it. With that, before we get to the final question, which we're gonna relate I'm gonna tweak that final question to relate it back to trees. But do you have any final thoughts on your overall time here today on the Special Chronicles podcast that you'd like to share with all our listeners?
Well, I've had a ton of fun here, Daniel. I like I said, I love trees, and I promise you I try to keep it short. And I don't know if I succeeded at that or if this counts as a success. You can tell me. But if I may, I've got one more joke for you if you're up for it.
Yeah, I do. I think our listeners always love a good joke.
Okay, well, we've got Arbor Day coming up, so I want to make sure you all take care of your trees really, really well. So, do you know what a tree's favorite beverage is?
I would think that it's water, but I don't know.
Yeah, in reality, you're absolutely correct. But in joke land, it's root beer. There you go, you got it.
Joe, you listeners, just imagine that applause. I mean, that laughter was all audience laughing at that tree. It was a really good joke.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Tree jokes are hard to come by, so I hope you've enjoyed them.
It is, yeah. And it wasn't just a dad joke; it was a true joke. And so, I will. In fact, I have some notes of both that true joke and the other one, and I'll put it as a chapter marker. So if our listeners want to go and go and directly to that tree joke, you guys can play that for all of your friends. In fact, I may even actually that tree joke, that last one that you said with the Whitfield, I might even edit that 1 minute clip out just for Earth Day and that tree joke will make our listeners want to go listen to the trees. Yeah. I don't know about you, but does that sound like a plan to that tree joke is what will pull that will leaf the listeners into want to listen to the full episode.
Yeah, no, absolutely would. I mean, I had an oak joke, but it was a corny one.
Oh, you want to? Oh, that was a joke.
That one's a hard one.
It took me a while to get it, but well, you know what? I'm glad that you concluded the episode with a couple tree jokes because well, first off, I think that's the clip that will let our listeners that will pull our listeners into want to listen to the full episode. But also, I think it's all about this podcast is all about not only informative but also entertaining disability conversations. And so, we're not all about informing people, but we're also about entertaining as well, and a combination of both. Yeah. And that's what you get here at Special Chronicles in this podcast. With that, yeah, we've got one final question, so we're going to go ahead and we've got a bumble that let's go ahead and roll that bumble.
We're not just athletes.
We are the ambassadors of an uprising, peaceful protesters
in a rebellion against anyone
who has a fear of difference. Our demands are
equality,
dignity, and the recognition of our shared humanity.
We will not stop or accept anything less.
Today, our world is
more divided than ever, and coming together has never been more urgent.
The revolution
is inclusion.
Find out more at jointherevolution.org.
So, just like trees, I'm my motto too.
It's good to stay hydrated.
I know, it's just like trees, right? trees need water, humans need water, a podcaster needs water. It's all good. Although since I attended the 2019 Special Olympics World Games in Abu Dhabi for the past 5 years, I've been asking all of our guests one final question, and so I'll do the same with you. Inclusion, especially when it comes to DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Inclusion is a big, an inclusion revolution is a big message in Special Olympics. It's important here at Special Chronicles. I'm sure at ComEd. I'm going to kind of tweak a little tree-related spin to this final question and ask you as well. What does inclusive tree efficiency mean to you? And you can take this however you want to take it. But as I'm sure you know, a lot of our listeners, a lot of our ComEd customers come from all different walks of life. Some in poor towns or cities, some in wealthy, some right in the middle. And so you could take this question in any way that you would like, but kind of speak to all different walks of life in all different types of economic classes. But what does inclusive tree efficiency mean to you?
Well, Daniel, that's a good question. So inclusive trees, I think, kind of comes down to that trees and you and me sort of title that we've got here. I think this plays it nicely. Trees mean a lot to everyone. They're good for our mental health. They provide oxygen. They reduce erosion. They provide food in a lot of cases, or for us as well as animals. Support quite a bit of life, and they grow in all shapes and sizes. But regardless of where they are or what they do for us, I think the big thing is that we're all entitled to enjoy them in our own little perspective, however that might be. And it's important for us to take the time to make sure that we get those trees for the next generation, but also those who maybe don't have the opportunity to get them for themselves. So making sure that we're building a robust canopy across the United States wherever trees should be planted or could be planted is just a great way to come together for the environment and with each other. And I can't tell you any time that I haven't had a great day working with anybody around a tree, under a tree, planting a tree, near a tree. I feel like I'm adding in a lot of fluff here, but ultimately, I really feel like getting out there, enjoying nature is something that should be for everybody. It should be accessible. It should be available. And the more that we take time to make sure that it's there for the future and for those of us who want to get out and enjoy it, the better life will be.
Awesome. Perfectly put. That's a perfect way to wrap up this Trees for You and Me episode. And perfect kind of title, but perfect summary of what we hope that you, our listeners, have gained in an informative, in an entertaining past 53 minutes. I know is we're gearing up on that 1 hour. We're just shy, but that 30 minutes turned into 1 hour, but that's perfectly okay. And so thank you again for coming on. Got a few final reminder plugs for all of you listening before we let you come in and get back to the rest of your evening, and I get back to my evening as well. And all you listeners can get back to the rest of your morning, afternoon, day, whatever you are listening to this. But I'd like to encourage all of you listening to support our Special Chronicles 2024 Giving Campaign. Our goal is to raise $15,000 because we have just celebrated our 15th anniversary the end of last year. So we can operate our studio and continue our mission of giving respect and voice to people with disabilities. We are all about $7,000 we still need to raise about a little bit over $7,000 for this year. And so you can just visit specialchronicles.com, click on Give Now to donate today. And I'm not wearing it because we all trying to be on brand for ComEd. But if we didn't have to be on brand, technically nobody said that we had to be on brand. But if we weren't on brand, I would be showing our Special Chronicles merch because you can shop our merch store and you can really show your support for Special Chronicles. Our Special Chronicles store is managed by Outshine Labels. We have T-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, candles. Who would have thunk candles? But yes, we have you can shop our merch store knowing that 60%, that's 60% of the profits will support Special Chronicles. You can visit our merch store at specialchronicles.com/shop. That's specialchronicles.com/shop. And Kelvin, even you and your coworkers can head on over there. I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because 60% of the profits go to support Special Chronicles, but our T-shirts and our hoodies are actually comfy. There's times where I'm just wearing our Disabled Voices Matter hoodie just around the house, and it gets to the evening, and I'm like, I don't want to take this off because this is comfy. So, Disabled Voices Matter. I've heard from a number of you listeners that actually like that this merch collection that we have, and so please go to specialchronicles.com/shop. One final reminder, you can visit specialchronicles.com. Keep following the Special Chronicles podcast, or go ahead and tap that follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. Go tap that follow button so you don't miss our original content that will help you make impactful, inclusive connections in your life through our podcast. Visit specialchronicles.com. Again, new episodes will drop every Monday at 9 a.m. Central Time, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter, where we'll give you bonus content and keep you updated on some of our favorite episodes from the past month. And you can also stream our archives of over 750 episodes absolutely for free. And so, just go ahead and visit specialchronicles.com for links to follow Special Chronicles on Insta, on social media, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you again, Kelvin, for taking the time to come on the Special Chronicles podcast and our EnergyForce series.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Daniel, for having me. It was a ton of fun. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And until next week, we've got some exciting content coming to you guys this month of April, including you do not want to miss in 2 weeks from the time that this episode drops, the Chief Customer Officer at United Airlines, Linda Jojo, is coming on for a 1 hour conversation that you do not want to miss. Again, the Chief Customer Officer at United Airlines, you do not want to miss. So excited for you all to hear this conversation. So keep following the podcast. Until then, remember, choose to include and Disabled Voices Matter. We'll catch you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Special Chronicles podcast. Our podcast was produced by Daniel Smrokowski on the Special Chronicles Network. Follow Special Chronicles on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Subscribe, rate, and review Special Chronicles on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Our website, specialchronicles.com, where you can stream our archives of over 500 episodes for absolutely for free. Also, there's a list of our favorites, original series, award-winning columns, and blogs. And sign up for our newsletter to bonus content delivered to your inbox. Again, specialchronicles.com. Special Chronicles is hosted by Podbean Podcast Hosting. Our live streams are powered by StreamYard. Thanks as always to our business manager, Adam Smrokowski, who always encourages us to never give up. I'm Daniel Smrokowski, back next week with more stories.
Special Chronicles. Giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.